Welcome to Human or Athlete. We're nearly finished with the first group of 15, kind of season 1, and I'm delighted to bring on with me Jim Stevenson, good friend of mine for the last, 3-4 years, been through football, now got over power. Delighted to have you on.
Great to be here.
Brilliant. Well, for the people that don't know you, please kind of tell us your story through football to overpower and give kind of everyone a brief idea of what you've been through.
Yeah, so to cut the long story short, ambition was always to become a pro footballer and went about that as hard as I could to get to League Two, was the highest I played at Luton. Played most of my football conference prem and dropped down a couple of levels. Well, one level to Conference South, which was where I ended up playing part-time. I'd qualified as a PT alongside my football while I was playing full-time, got some qualifications there, strength and conditioning, and started to explore training other people, coaching other people, started some group exercise sessions in my local area. I suppose the best way to picture that would be like a boot camp, but I don't call it a boot camp because I do it very differently. But essentially I started outdoor training, absolutely loved it, and made a transition away from football to then pursue that as a full-time business, which is now what I do alongside playing football for fun rather than as a job anymore. But that's the long story in a summarized way. And here I am.
Amazing. Yeah, like I've seen a big part of that transition, I'd say as well, like over the last 3-4 years, and it's been just, it's been so cool to see that. Talk to me about that story in football initially and what you kind of went through mentally, the ups and downs in confidence, in pressure, in anxiety, all those things that we have to deal with as footballers.
Yeah, so much of that throughout in different stages. And I think the more I've come to terms with mindset and the deeper I've gone with it, as you know, we talk about it at depth when we catch up. I'm really interested, curious, and passionate about understanding the mind and how it works. And I suffered a lot with pre-game anxiety, overloading my brain constantly of thinking about football all of the time. And the more I come to terms with mindset and about growth and how we do move to the next stage in our life, the more I feel that is almost necessary to grow and get from where I was at the time playing like Conference North to get my move to Luton, which was, anyone that knows and has played in the non-league, it's hard to get out the non-league. So I had to really go to work to make that happen. And a lot of that was mental work as well as physical. And the more I think about it, if I hadn't have had to go through the anxiety, go through the sleepless nights thinking about games and all of that, I wouldn't have got the move. What I've learned now, as I look back, is how we cope with that. So like the nerves and the anxiety is going to happen. It's there. The coping mechanisms that we develop or don't develop, or we maybe don't even think about, the ways that we cope. I feel that's how we can determine how enjoyable that route forwards was. I was fortunate to have really solid, like, home life, parents that were there, like friends that were around me. So like my coping mechanisms were good when I think about it. I didn't go down the route of gambling to cope or binge eating to cope, which I know footballers do. I talk about binge eating with like my clients, like women clients that are overweight. I know that footballers do that as well as a way to cope with stress, and they overeat and all of those sorts of things. So I was fortunate to develop good coping mechanisms, which was like going out for walks and enjoying training in the gym, but relaxing with that and just finding positive ways, reading and just spending time playing FIFA. Like I see those as like good ways to cope with stress and anxiety. So I think that answers your question. That was a big thing for me, was learning how to cope with all of those challenges that come up.
I mean, it's like what the quote is, like, suffering like is inevitable. We're all going to suffer. Like once you accept that, then you can actually do something about it instead of like, oh, why do I have this? Why do I have that? Like that's not going to go away. That's just how it is now. Yeah. So, and then you realize that it kind of will go away naturally by just, accepting it. Talk to me about that, going deeper into that pre-game anxiety. What was that like? What was that experience for you? And then in those moments, in those like present moment, how did you then cope with that one?
When I think back to when I was at my most nervous pre-game, it was when I wanted it the most. I'd say it was when I wanted to get a move the most, and I really put myself under like good pressure to deliver, but that can then become too much pressure you put on yourself. So finding that balance for me was key. But how I dealt with that was learning tools to deal with it. So I did go and see a mindset coach. I actually had a session with Dan Abrahams, you know, the one that wrote Soccer Tough, and I read his book, and I was like delving into psychology, sport, mindset, you know, my chatterbox, if you've read the chimp paradox, all of those things. I started to become more aware of like, okay, so this is going to be happening, like you said, accept it, but how can I use this like nervous energy, this good stress, I call it good stress, like how can I use this but turn it into positive energy? So I would have affirmations like pre-game when I had that like feeling in my belly and I felt like I just needed to go back into the change room and take a dump, like that feeling is there right before a big game, and you know you've got a scout watching or whatever that is, like, or my dad's watching and I'm like, I want to impress him, like those sorts of pressures I would be repeating in my head, like I am the dominant midfielder, like, and then I'd focus on like my key focuses for that game that I knew would be the, I suppose, catalyst for better performance, which was for me, like, I'm box to box and full energy. So it's just punchy. I'm box to box and full energy. I know I'm going to do that. And if I do that well, the rest of it will take care of itself. Like, and my other thing was I'm aggressive and snappy on second balls. I can still remember them now. And I would just say these things because I knew that if I could have energy and be box to box and be first to loose balls, the rest of it would take care. Because I can't control whether that pass finds a player. I can't control whether like the shot from 30 yards hits the stanchion or hits the corner flag. I hit the corner flag more in my career, hence why I got down. But the point is, I controlled the controllables better, which was a big thing from Dan Abrahams and other books that I'd read. And I just used to try and use that like will to do well. That's where this nervous energy comes from, isn't it? We want to do well. We want to progress. We want to like make ourselves, our family, all those people proud. I just try to use that energy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. See, it's that perspective and change to then, like, you know, the energy then changes when it becomes positive energy, good stress, you know, all these things. And then, like you said, it's kind of like the dark energy. You use it, you turn it into something that actually with the perspective change fuels you to want, like, to be better and to enjoy that more. Kind of what, I want to talk about the story quick as well, because I remember this and I wrote it down, funnily enough, as you talked about the affirmations. But I remember talking about, I think you were playing for Dover at the time, and you'd go into your car and like put on full loudspeaker like affirmations and like super like big music and just kind of scream them away. Like, so tell me about that.
So that was a time in my career where I was going through this real difficult phase where I knew I wanted to still be a footballer, but I'd really lost so much confidence because I'd gone from like feeling really confident at where I was playing at the time, Histon, to get my move to Luton and like feeling like, right, I'm going to keep progressing. I got released by Luton and then went to Aldershot and had a year there, and I got released again after another year, which I felt like I was going to get a new contract there. And my ambition was still then to be a professional footballer and get higher. I still had ambitions to play, you know, as high as I could. And football's football. The manager left within like, I think it was 5-6 games before the end of the season, or he announced he was going. New manager came in. I wasn't the right fit for him and I was done. And then I was then at Dover, which I was living in Cambridge. And my mindset then was starting to like, this is becoming like, not hard. I don't mind hard, but this is becoming like such a strain. I had to really like try and find motivation. Dover played a style of football that was, to be honest, horrible to play in. They did man-to-man marking and they just put it in the channels all of the time. So, and we won a lot of games. Don't get me wrong, it was effective, but you know, it wasn't enjoyable necessarily to play in at all. So I had to try and find this like drive to do it. And I'd had I think it was not far after I'd had reserve game for Dover,
Mm-hmm.
and the actual crowd that were there wasn't many. It was like a small crowd.
Yeah.
There was a few Dover fans in the audience, and they were actually, I can't remember exactly what the chant said, but they were chanting my name negatively.
Oh man.
And they had a song that was like about me. I didn't fully, I tried to blank it, and I tried to keep playing, but I could hear it was there. Mm-hmm. And the first time I'd ever experienced that, and it was like, in this horrible Tuesday night, like in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't tell you who we played. Like, only thing I remember about that game was this chant and me trying to block it out, and that really knocked me, because I'd gone from like feeling like I was going to be a footballer to, at that point, like, I don't want to play football anymore. Mm-hmm. But I'm still contracted to play. So this affirmations thing is something from Tony Robbins, and he has this morning routine. Like, if you ever know, you know about Tony Robbins and his morning routines and all of these sorts of things. And one of the things that he talks about is this like affirmations, but he calls them incantations. So an affirmation is like maybe more of a, I am loving, kind, and you sit there, and he's like, no, you need to bring energy, and it's like Californian. So he's like, you got to shout it, you got to say it. So I'm like trying to find this like love for football and this like drive to play a game, and I'm driving 2.5 hours to Dover, and I don't want to leave to the game. Like I'm literally like procrastinating on getting in the car. So I'm like, I don't want to go and play, but I know I'm starting, and I know it's a big game. We're playing Lincoln, who were at that point top of our league, were right up there when they got promoted that year. And I just shouted the whole way to the game, like all these affirmations about like, not about me being a good footballer, just like all I need is within me now. Like this is, it's no longer about trying to be a footballer. It was just like, as a human, I'm better than like the chance that I got. I'm better than feeling this low. I don't care whether like I play well or not. I'm just going to put myself in this unstoppable state of confidence in myself. Played great. We won 3-0. But the point was like, and I drove back and it was awesome. Football didn't go the way I wanted it to that year. But like that was a moment where I always remember, because however low I am, I know I can pull myself up.
That's amazing. What a story. Looking back at this whole journey now through football, from all the ups, all the downs, how do you see that journey now? What kind of has it taught you? What would you say to your past self going through it all?
Yeah, I mean, 2 questions there. What has it taught me? Everything that I like stand for, like my values as a person. Like football, you meet lots of different characters, lots of different people. And we've spoken about this, I know, like, and you can meet a lot of dishonest people just trying to get their own way. And they're trying to like, I realise that now, they're just trying to make their own career. They're doing what they need to. And some of the time that is dishonesty for them to get their like needs met, their career journey that they want. I get that. But it taught me about like honesty and that value, and wanting that to be a big part of who I am. Because I didn't like it when I was lied to, or when I was not told the truth. I don't mind being told the truth, but people that would shirk away from that, to not actually go to where they need to go in terms of saying, look, you didn't do this well, you didn't do this well, and you didn't do this well. That's the reason you're not playing. Like, or just being fully straight with me where I was at. So that taught me a lot about human beings, which taught me how sometimes you have to see what people do badly to notice what you want to bring out in yourself.
Yeah.
And it taught me, as I just said, with the low, no matter how low you get, you can still pull yourself out of that. I had so many rejections. I was dropped so many times, like many that have played football and many listening in any sport, many losses. And I think all of those knocks and getting back up again, I know it's a bit cliche, but like every time you get back up, you get that bit stronger. Whether you make it to the place that you wanted to go in football or not, it was who I had to become to keep getting back up.
Yeah.
And every pre-season that I went again after I'd been released, and I was like, I'm going to come back fitter and stronger. I remember I got not released. I did 1 year at Luton. I'd ended up on loan, and they'd got promoted, and I hadn't been a part of the promotion particularly. And everybody said to me, like, it's going to be hard to get in that squad now, isn't it? Like, they'd say to me, like, and the reality was, like, yeah, of course it's going to be hard, because I'd been on loan, I'd not been a part of it. They had this, like, mucus of the squad that had got them promoted. They'd signed new players because they'd gone up to League 2. And I'm hearing all this from all these different angles, and I was just like, no, if I apply myself this off-season and go in the best I've ever felt, in the best shape I've ever been in, and with the most confidence I can put into myself, I can get in that team. And first game of the season, I came off the bench and played in League Two. And I was way out of it at the start of pre-season because I've not even been a part of it.
Yeah.
So like those moments of like finding the strength to keep going.
Yeah.
I apply that in business now. I apply that in conversations I have with, the people I'm helping in my health and fitness coaching role. So all of those lessons were huge for me, definitely.
Amazing. What advice would you give to your past self?
That was the second question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think looking back, and I apply this to myself now, is to be kinder to myself. Like I was ruthless to myself, and I know you, like just from our conversations, you can relate to this. And I think there's a part of sport that you have to be, but I think sometimes that was detrimental to my own confidence and to my own energy. I talk about protecting my energy more, and at times I don't think I protected my energy well enough. And by that I mean a bad game would stay with me all week to the next game.
Yep.
And I think I wanted to learn from each bad game, but now I think I'd tell myself to be kinder, to learn from it, to ask better questions, and then to move on quicker. Because I think it affected me longer than it needed to. And then day-to-day training and my energy. And also that kindness element of there's not much in my 10-year football journey that I remember like real moments of fun and laughter and joy, like outside of football. I remember them in football when we won or when there was like great banter, but I'm talking about with friends and family.
Yeah.
And I left a lot of that to make football happen.
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't bother me. But when I look back, I think I could have enjoyed more of the moments in between, to take more respite, to enjoy more of life, and to make the most of the people in my life more, and like give them more of me, because I gave everything to football. I didn't give them much of me. And now I don't live that way, because I can learn from experience that I want to grow my business, but I also want to enjoy the journey and make sure that I have memories and create moments that make me smile and make other people smile.
Yeah, I think with the being hard and like on yourself, like you said, I can relate to it 100%. And it's something that if you think about it, it's just waste. It's like the second dart kind of thing. Is you get hit with the first dart of the performance of whatever's gone on, like know that you can't change that anymore, and then you get hit by more and more darts because of then how you're seeing that situation with yourself. Like I could and don't get me wrong, constructive, and like you said, a bit of it's needed. You need to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, that wasn't good enough. But then it's coming going, okay, cool, I accept that wasn't good enough. A, what am I going to do about it? B, I can't change that now. So it's been and gone. Instead of, like you said, because I had that moment big time like 3-4 months ago, and I played the game, and honestly, probably top 3 worst games of football I've ever played in my life. Like just one of them absolute ones. I remember when I was like 14, like it happened, and I was like cried off the pitch, and it's just awful. And I had another game like that, and it was just absolutely like, it was awful. And like you realize afterwards, like there's nothing you can do about that now. And in a way, hitting that low point of going, like, no matter how bad I've played, I actually can't be that hard on myself, because it's been and gone, and I've played that badly, and I've had all my worst fears of like playing that badly actualized, that there's no point in being hard on yourself if you don't play. Like even if I played way better than that, there's no point in being hard on myself, because I've hit that low of like, you can't play worse than that.
Yeah, you found perspective. Yeah,
exactly. And so you realize then kind of like, well, if I've played that badly and I've just accepted that and moved on, any performance that at any level, at any quality or whatever, there's no need, there's no like, it's just something that's kind of a bonus to what it is. It just makes it worse than it is. And so then it's not reality anymore. And so it's just making it so much harder for yourself. And I think that balance in life is something that I think lockdowns taught a lot of people as well. But there is a lot more to life off it, and that's obviously what it's about on the podcast. Is we're all human, we're all going through the same things, and so the footballers going through their lives. Why does that mean just because you're thinking about football, you love football, whatever, doesn't mean you can go and do other things and enjoy life and have that balance, because you're probably going to improve yourself on the pitch as well. as long as I've known you, your work ethic's been ridiculous. And it's always something that, like, I think of Jim and I'm thinking, wow, work ethic. In a really kind of broad question, and take it however you want to, what does like work ethic, hard work, like mean to you?
I think it means honesty. Like, when I ask myself, can I do more? And I ask that question, like, can I do more? The answer yes always comes out. So I think it's just being honest, like, and I think work ethic and, hard work is like anything is built. It's built. It becomes something that you get stronger. You become able to work harder. Like, if someone's sat on their arse all day and they're not working hard at all, and you ask them to put an output out, an energy and a work ethic that is like, so they're a 1 out of 10, and someone over here is like a 9 out of 10 work ethic, whatever that is to anyone listening. Like, 1 out of 10, a 9 out of 10. Like, if you ask that 1 out of 10 to go and deliver a 9 out of 10 tomorrow, no chance they're going to hit it. And if they did, they'd be done. But like, they would be finished for like a week, right? Yeah. Just, it wouldn't be within them yet. But if you asked them to turn that 1 out of 10 into a 2 out of 10, they could do it.
Yeah.
So it's like gradually scaling that up. So I think work ethic is honesty and work ethic is built. I don't think anyone's just got it. And I think anyone can have it. I think it's something that you stack and become more energized and more willing and more mentally like strong to be able to work that hard and see what's within you to go. I do that in the gym and I do that in life and I do that in business. Doesn't always happen, and I'd have days where I'm like, why couldn't I get the same output? But I know what I'm capable of because I've been willing to push to that.
Yeah, I think it's a journey, right? It's something that you can't go there like, if you're feeling like, okay, actually I don't work hard enough compared to other people. And again, comparison, killer of joy. So don't stay away from that. But if you know you've got more in you, it's a journey, it's a process.
Yes.
Like, even for yourself, would you find that the harder, like the more hard work you've done and this journey of working so hard, you've realized that probably less is more as well?
Yeah. Oh, so much. I realize that so much. Like, now when I work hard, like, I work really, really hard, but then it's not for as long, and it doesn't need to be dragged out. It's like, just go to that, like, ask yourself the question, can I do more? Not can I work longer, but like, can I do more? Can I find more within me? I certainly, I mean, we've spoken about this as well. Like, you can overwork. It's like, hard work doesn't necessarily mean longer work, or like, it's can also be smarter. Yeah,
I think, exactly. And I think for me, that whole journey has evolved into like being present. Like, if I'm going to go and work for an hour in the gym, I give it everything in the hour, pure focus, pure concentration. And then I've got everything out of that hour. I've got exactly what I wanted to do. And I get home and I've got the evening or whatever. Then that's rest mode. Then I'm completely present in enjoying my rest, making my food, relaxing, spending time with family, or just watching a film or reading. I'm completely present in that. And so there's no longer like, that, like you said, that chatterbox coming in going, oh, I could be doing more tonight. When actually I've put in that hour of pure focus presence, got out of that, and now I need to rest presently as well.
Yeah, I think that comes from experience. Like, you speak because you've gone there and you've gone deeper in talking about it.
Gone too hard.
Also, you speak from experience, but you also speak from like learning and asking questions, and the sort of questions you would ask me when we go into down and practice. You're exploring that. So I think you only recognize that from doing it and realizing and learning, or being or the fastest way to learn it is to get the person and get the education and get a mentor to say, look, hey, this is what you need to do. Like, I've been there and done it, or I've been there and I've helped other people to get the result that you're looking for. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that's, you can definitely speed up the process of getting to where you want to be by working hard at the things that are most like impactful for the growth that you're looking for.
Exactly. I saw this quote, and you'll like it. I only saw it recently, but it said, you must always go too far to find the truth. And I thought that sums me up pretty much in everything that I've gone through. In that I've probably worked too hard or gone too like intense on this, but that's where I've learned the lesson that I needed to learn. So I always like identify with that one recently.
Yeah, can relate to that.
Yeah. Talk to me about the transition from kind of starting over power and leaving football, especially kind of like, taking that priority away from being a professional and
Mm.
having to balance that because, I think that's a big fear for a lot of people, that being reality. But how did you deal with all that?
Like the hardest decision I've ever made, because I'd done so much and had so much emotional attachment, as well as like, I wanted all the things that being a professional would bring, being a professional footballer would bring me. Like I also had so much like baggage and history with that journey. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go of this bag of like emotions and all the hard work and all that time spent in the gym and dedicated purely to this one thing. I think that's the hardest thing to let go of for me at that time. And it was only because I think I was asking myself the questions of like, where do I see myself in 10 years time, and what do I want my life to be like? The answers I was giving were answers around family and like joy and how I wanted to feel within myself. And the more I went to actually where I wanted to be, I realised that football could bring me that, but also other options could. So I think that was the first thing. I started to be more aware because I did goal setting, and I started to go deeper into like my own, like, I suppose, ambitions for what I wanted from life. Not the things that would bring those things, but what I actually wanted. Like the end values, not the means values. Like the means value is the car, but the end value is what the car brings you. If that makes sense. So I recognized that and started to be more conscious of it. But I was still attached to this football thing because it was all I'd done, and I still wanted it. But it wasn't until or I should say I wanted it. I thought I wanted it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was in a business event. I was starting to go down the business route. As I said, I was juggling football. I was juggling Overpower, which was the group stuff. I was juggling one-to-one football sessions. That was where we first met. We started to do a few sessions together and realised you were technically better than me. Let's just play football together. But it was good fun. But the fitness side of it was definitely something I could help with, which was brilliant. But it was more like juggling all those things, and I was trying to explore, what did I want to do after football? And football fitness was always something that I was very, very good with and aware about. So that was a route I thought I'd go down. And I was juggling trying to be a PE teacher. So I had all four of these things going on. Naturally, I was pretty scattered and pretty exhausted trying to do all of this.
Jim's never scattered and exhausted.
Mate, I was scattered. I would probably put on a front like I've got all of this, and I'd turn up in control. But I'd get there in a hurry, in a rush. But I went to a seminar, which was all about business marketing, learning as I started to first explore like business theory. I didn't study business. I just started a business, but I started to study business more. And the more I went to these like business things, the more I realized it was around mindset. And this first one I'd gone to with a lady called Lucy Johnson, who is a marketing coach, essentially. She was talking on the stage about a marathon experience that she'd been through herself. So she'd run this marathon and she'd done all the training, but the only reason she'd done the training and run a marathon was because her brother had said to her, "You'd never run a marathon." And she'd like gone to run this marathon to prove him wrong. And she was telling this story, and I literally just went like ice cold. I've never felt the feeling. I don't know if I'll ever feel it again. But it was like literally when people say like an aha moment, like this wasn't an aha moment. This was like I won't swear, but this was like a Jesus. This was like a moment of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I just went ice cold and froze. And I don't know what it was or who I was trying to prove wrong. I think everybody that I could be a footballer, all of the doubters, the Dover fans that had sung my name the wrong way, like a manager, John Beck, that had told me I'd never be a footballer, my dad that wanted to be a footballer, proving all of these people that I could do it. And I recognised that I no longer wanted that goal for me anymore. I was doing all of that to try and either make people happy or to prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So there and then, and I say my big value is honesty. This is one of the like things that makes me sort of sick that I did it. But I rang my manager and told him that I'd done my back in. I don't know if I've ever told you this.
No.
So this was the morning of a game, and I was due to play in the FA Cup for Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And I feel awful having done it, but I just had to do something. I just didn't want to go and play the game, and I just needed to cut off.
Yeah.
So it was like a really rush decision in this like state of like I don't want to be a footballer anymore.
Yeah.
In that moment, and I rang him and I said to him, I've got a back spasm. I don't know if I can get to the game. And as I say that, I feel embarrassed to have lied. I should have tried, but I don't know. I didn't know how to explain it to him. Like on the phone on the day of a game, I did not know how to explain it. All I knew was that I didn't want to go and play that game of football.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stay where I was and take back some like just not even control, but just take back some truth to what I wanted to do. So even though I regret the way I did it, I don't regret what I did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I did tell my manager, and I had a proper conversation with the next day and told him what I was feeling, and I did get it all out. And I just cut off. Yeah. In that moment, and that was 2017.
Wow. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
It's pretty special, and I think that, like you said, even I'd say honesty to yourself to go, okay, like this isn't right, this isn't about me, this isn't for me, and then go, okay, I've got to be like real with myself here. I've got to be like, this is how it is. And it's like, and I think in that moment is when you can see, and reflecting back, obviously you see this, but it's like it wasn't about like ego anymore. You cut that ego straight off. This is not about how I see myself or how other people see me. This just isn't right intuitively anymore.
Yeah.
And to have that strength to do that, I think is like, that takes a lot of courage. And like you said, the honesty as well. Like I think a decision like that takes a lot. And so, it
was the bravest thing I've ever done. Yeah. It might not feel like that or seem like that to other people, but at the time, it was the bravest thing I've ever done because there was so much that was keeping me there. Yeah. So yeah, that was the moment of the transition, which wasn't really a transition. It was more like a jump, and it was more like jump onto a new train rather than like step onto it gently. But yeah.
What's after kind of obviously having made that and then gone on? What's your relationship been like with your ego, and then kind of going like, well, all those fears centered around losing that footballer ego? What's that been like? So
the first part of it, because I'd made that big decision, I was like, I got to make this work, because I kind of announced it to all of my friends. I didn't like go quietly about it. I was like, I've done, I've moved on. Yep. So and then I was like, right, now what? Because I just used all of my energy, work ethic, and just put it into business. I didn't really stop to think what I'd done. I just did it. I actually also broke up with my ex-girlfriend within that same period. So I cut off from everything. I had a house and a dog with her. I was like, just bang, moved back in with my parents and just went, right, I'm gonna make this business thing work. And I just went big on that for 3 or 4 months. Maybe less actually, maybe 2 months. And I did a lot in 2 months. And I remember lying in bed, and I was really, really busy at the time. I've created busyness in my life again. Yep. And I was busy before with football and all these other things. And now I was just busy coaching lots of clients, one-to-one, football. I was doing everything, which was great in terms of, income, business success. But I just sort of covered over all of my actual fears, doubts, worries. And I remember just taking pen to paper and I don't necessarily journal deeply daily. I journal, but I don't necessarily, I write when I feel I need to write and when I need to offload, because I'm quite a communicator verbally. So I get a lot of my things off my chest, talking to partner and all of that. But I think it's important to journal, and I just wrote how I was feeling. Tears, crying, and I just realised I'd lost not lost everything, but I'd lost who I was still didn't know who I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd lost it in football and I still hadn't found it. So that was really, really hard in terms of when I actually went there to recognise that I no longer had the thing that I was known for. And I realised it was all like I'd always felt fulfilled because I was the footballer in hyphenations. Like that was what gave me my identity in a way.
Yeah.
So then I more went around the route of rather than growing a business, I'm going to rebuild myself.
Yeah.
And that was when my journey really started. I think when I started to rebuild myself again.
I think it's also beautiful in that kind of rock bottom, people would call it, obviously, is that you then realize that you're still okay. The worst is like my game. The worst has happened. I'm still here. Yeah. I'm still standing. I'm still okay. And then even like what immediately came to mind when you talked about that, when you kind of realized that I still haven't attached myself to a new identity yet. I'm still kind of lost. It's like, that's such a beautiful space, because then in a way that like you said in that 2 months, and there's no attachments to who you are. There's no whatever. And then in a way you become unstoppable because of that, because there's no identity that says, oh, there's fear attached to this or whatever. And that becomes like a crazy space. And I think, that happened naturally, but so many people are trying to create that space where there's no ego, because that's obviously a big part of Buddhism and everything. But it's so crazy how you naturally went through that. Was like, whoa, I don't have this anymore. Kind of,
there was nothing to lose.
Exactly. And so,
which is how we want to live life, right?
Exactly. And so when you kind of realize and you look back at that time there, you're completely fulfilled through nothingness in a way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's just a crazy kind of concept. And if I always just see things like that have happened and all these different things, or experienced it in moments myself. And it's like, that they're the crazy places where you could do anything.
And when I say I was in tears and I was like lost, there's a part of me that set all of my like goals in that moment. As in, and when I mean goals, I mean like who I wanted to be. Like I say, I was in flow through nothing, because I was like, what do I have now? Which I'm grateful to have actually been able to go to that place of, I did obviously I had lots around me, but in my mind I had, virtually I felt like nothing again. Which is when you put it that way, I've never actually looked at it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what an incredible place to have actually got myself in.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. How did you then, from nothingness in a way, like from that blank slate, rebuild yourself?
I think firstly I got clear on, as I mentioned to you, I had like some awareness of what I wanted or what I felt like. That always evolves, but what I felt like in that moment I wanted my life to be like, as in, and I don't mean what things I wanted, and I just mean like how I wanted to feel in myself and how I wanted to feel around others and what I wanted to contribute. So I just got really clear on what I wanted to create through overpower, through who I needed to become to be that person, who I wanted to attract as a partner. I got super clear on all of that.
Yeah.
And then I just took action on all of it, as in just waited to attract it. I just manifested it. And I honestly, that came through reading and Tony Robbins and all of those stories about how if you decide what you want, you can go and get it. I know that's a really simple way of looking at it, but I literally decided what I wanted, and just took action, asked the right questions, got people to help me where I needed it. Went hard, the work ethic thing, went hard on getting those things that I wanted.
How, obviously, then going through that phase where you've rebuilt your ego, you're kind of, more aware of that, I'd say probably, because I know that I've seen that in you. Your awareness has grown as well. Like, I think we both kind of in tandem grown a lot in awareness throughout this time. And how is then, like, you talk about obviously the footballer ego being full of fear, like, it's there, and then when you left it, you're like, whoa, what do I do now? And then rebuilding your ego, rebuilding the identity. What are now kind of your fears around that now? How do you deal with them? Do you still, like, what is at the core of all this, knowing that you kind of built it from scratch again? How's it different?
you know, there's so many similarities, and I think this is what I said earlier on when you asked me, like, the reality is, if you are looking to grow, if you are looking to change things, like, that fear, that uncertainty is inevitable. Like, it's part of it. So there's a lot of me that, like, searches for that now, searches for being uncomfortable and knowing that if I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing. So that's always a part of my day. Or if it's not, I know I'm chilling, which is cool, and I'm comfortable with that more than I used to be. Because I used to be uncomfortable being comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm relaxed, I'm not doing anything, and if I'm not doing anything, like, I'm missing opportunities, or I'm gonna let things slip. You know, like. So that's something that I've had to really work on. My partner tries to help me with that all of the time, Colleen. She's very chilled, very relaxed, which is really good for me because I'm not naturally that way inclined, but I'm becoming better at just going, it's cool, let it be, relax. And then trying to, you know, switching that mindset back on, as you said, like when I'm in the gym or when I'm like, then go to work. And I'm still really working on that because reality is, every time I grow, or like we've been through this lockdown scenario and had to really, like, shift the business, all of that's been uncomfortable, all of that's been hard. We've taken some setbacks, like so many people will have done in this time, whatever they're doing. There's been so much to be thankful for, and there's been so much growth internally to use that in the future.
I love it. I think that maturity of kind of, in a way, got, like, just going, okay, like, I don't always have to be, like, doing. Like, that's a big thing that, like, you know, I think we followed in the same journey. It's like, I can be okay just kind of being chill, being, like, you know, in this moment right now, not necessarily striving. And that's where
I'm still working on that one. When you say it now, I'm still like, I don't do that very often.
No, I mean, it's something like, for me, like, I'm spending so much time off technology at the moment. No social media, no YouTube, no TV. And for someone who lives on their own, like, it's obviously difficult. And it's like, oh, my mind straight away wants to distract itself from just chilling, from just being here in this moment. And that's something that, like, I try and work on as much as possible, because I've said this probably about 1 million times on this podcast, but if you can sit quietly in a room alone, or all of man's sufferings come from the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And that, for me, is, like, something that, you know, anyone can work on at any time in any situation. Because that is fulfillment on a deeper level that you can't come close to out there, like, in the world. But so because of this journey and everything, what kind of values do you value most in, like, others in society?
Great question. I went to Date with Destiny, which is in Florida with Tony Robbins, and it's all about values.
I'm very jealous.
It's awesome. I'm very fortunate to have gone. And it's all about your values, your beliefs, and going deeper and being really curious as to what your values have been and what you want them to be. So I know what values I live by, and also know what I'm striving for, if that makes sense, or what I want my values to be. And I shift between, because my habitual values is, and I know this now, is to be actually, and this has been me being truly honest, is significance, to feel appreciated and noticed by. I learned that from a young age, and I learned it from being a footballer, and people going, Jim's a footballer, and me going, like, internally, approval. My ego going, it feels good. Approval. Absolutely. So significance, approval, is a value, and I still get that now. Like, when I help somebody get in shape, or they tell me how great their life is, I'm like, that makes me feel good, and I'm doing good. So it's not like I'm meeting that need in a negative way. So that definitely is something that I really value, and that's not always a good thing to rely on that. I'm aware of that, but I know that I meet that need in a really positive way.
That's such a cool perspective on it, because for someone, I think, again, both of us, and because we've been on this journey, I think all this journey comes out of a sensitivity to that. I believe that with everyone. If you've got the thing to do more, to be more, to whatever, it comes from a sensitivity from not being enough in yourself.
Absolutely.
And that then normally needs to be filled by approval of others in whatever way. So
Yes.
to then see that and going, oh, I'm accepting this. This is a part of how it, like, you know, how I work at this moment is, you know, approval is a part of that. So, like, but how then you then use that in a positive way. Like, I love that. I haven't thought about that before.
Yeah. So I use that as a positive, and also I know how to meet that need in myself, which is, so I don't rely on others so much. So I know how to make myself feel approved. So self-approval, I feel so comfortable, confident in my own skin, which feels great. You could also connect that to, as you said, the deepest fears in most of us, like, and these are like, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be loved? So if you can make yourself feel good enough and you can make yourself feel loved, however that is, then you meet your needs. And that way, I think when your needs are met and you are complete, you can then contribute to others in the best and most beautiful way. When you're in a state of doubt and uncertainty and I'm not sure I'm loved internally, do I really love myself, who I am now? That then is that energy, that doubt in yourself comes out in the way you speak to others, in the way you feel sad when they reject you, which they haven't rejected, they're just living their life. They don't even think about the fact that they're meeting your needs because they're not having these conversations, they're thinking about it. And we're not, when we're in those moments, we are present, but subconsciously I know that I'm able to contribute, and allow someone else to feel approved and feel loved. And I give that off in a really big way, which is why I believe I'm very good at what I do, because I know, not consciously at the time, but I know that I'm able to, through feeling really comfortable in my own skin and loving myself, I'm able to portray it to others and they can feel great.
If you love yourself, you love others. If you hate yourself, you hate others. It's that relationship with yourself. I think that's brilliant. I think accepting that that's how we all interact and what, again, most of us strive for, to be able to then, like, completely humbly, but in awareness, give that, and then also give it to yourself. I think that's profound. That's very, very wise. I think, it's an incredible skill. So I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, because I know, and I'm aware, I think it's because of going to things like Tony Robbins and doing the work, and having these sorts of conversations. I understand that that's what people actually want, to feel good. I help them to try and see it in themselves. So it's like the lesson of how I've gone through that journey of, like, you are enough, you are loved. That's a long journey for people. Like, I work with women, specifically women. Some of them are in their 50s and they hate themselves. That's what they think. They think they hate themselves. I know that inside of them, they can find compassion and appreciation for themselves. But in the moments when they're first getting their confidence built, or they're on that start of that journey, I feel it's okay for me to portray my appreciation and my love to them, so that they can start to find that in themselves.
Your skill in yourself, in that you're having that external perspective and that you're worrying about them or whatever, I think that's on another level, because that is, like, I think the Dalai Lama says it, if you're worrying about other people and you're caring for other people and you're understanding how to give and to be generous and compassionate for others, you will never feel suffering yourself, because suffering comes from self-centeredness, self-importance, and you'll never be alone if you're worried about the 7 billion beings that live on this planet.
Yes.
And I think that's just that skill that you've cultivated and worked on through awareness and through putting yourself out there and, like you said, working on it, is an amazing skill to have. I really believe that.
Yeah. No, it's something that football didn't bring me personally.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had conversations about, and I'll ask you a question. Do you feel like in football, by playing that, my perspective of it is quite a self-fulfilling journey for my own goals, it was.
Yeah.
How do you feel that you can contribute, or that others can contribute their skill to others through football? Where can that like perspective come from?
Well, I think this is why I'm doing the podcast in a way. I think that football's so heavily tied to the ego, because it, like, the ego's big things are power, status, pleasure, money, wealth, and like fame. So like they're the biggest things that the ego thrives off of. And football is heavily connected to that because of the rewards that come with it.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very difficult one in football because it's so strong. Like that's what it's based off of. But, you know, we talked about this with Brandon on one of the first podcasts, is that compassion and stuff like that is the only way you can try and do it. Is, I'd say, teaching the skills at the beginning of like the football journey and going through the football journey to understand that by, you know, giving to others, by being complimentary of others, by, you know, finding all these things and acceptance and giving and caring about other people on the pitch, you're not actually losing anything in yourself. And I think that's the one big like deficiency in football players, and I think a lot of athletes, is that they're feeling incomplete, like we all have, like we all start on this journey. There's an incompleteness, and so we have to either strive more for ourselves or, you know, take it out and away from others. Like that's how, you know, we try and live with that incompleteness. And so for me, it's the education around learning that by giving and caring and stuff like that, you take away a lot of your problems for yourself. And through that, you know, you become complete in yourself. And, you know, then those things kind of naturally happen. They, you know, I always kind of take Messi as an example. There's no like, oh, more. There's no like, you know, all these things. It's a very humble kind of, you see the way that he interacts with the young players at Barcelona.
You can just feel his energies.
Exactly. And it's just kind of enjoyment around playing football. And I think if we all go back to that, the love of football, the enjoyment around it, it's so intuitive to both of us, for example, because it's been there since we were so young. Like you said about that emotional attachment too, it's part of us. It's become who we are. And if we go back to that, and with the skills of compassion and generosity that we can also be educated on, then that becomes the priority. And then all those things kind of, you know, hopefully aren't as powerful and aren't as meaningful.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I can relate, having now gone back to playing football for Peterborough locally, Peterborough Sports. That was the dogs.
No
cute,
worries.
didn't I? The football games that I've played with no fear, no agenda to needing to do well, no concerns about am I going to get picked, just totally feeling relaxed into those games. I've let my like inner child, inner boy,
true self,
football, true self play. I very rarely, I got it a few times and they were my best games.
Yeah.
But when I very rarely managed to bring that out in higher level games and in like key moments in my career.
I think that's the important thing for people listening, is that by focusing on that present moment enjoyment of the game, why you play, why you go back to that, and then naturally in training and stuff like that, having that attitude, being around others and giving off that positive kind of love for the game.
Yes.
It's only going to help your performance. It's only going to improve it, because you can't be present and kind of like full of love and happiness and, you know, like joking around and like laughter, and be full of fear and ego, and, you know,
they can't live in the same body.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, we've talked about this a few times, using negative energy when that does arise, like you said, feeling it and going, okay, that's there. How do I use it? That's brilliant. That's amazing, because you're not going to do everything through love. But I feel like we can use love so much more personally and also giving it out in the game. And that's where I think we're lacking a lot of.
Yeah, I think if I had found that perspective and gone, and as you say, it's not easy to go there, not easy get to that place. That's a journey to get to that. Then it would have been a whole different experience.
Yeah, I mean, like I preach about it now and talk about it now, and I'm so like got so far to go with it, with you know, all the difficulties going on right now in my environments and stuff like that. It's so difficult to find
it makes sense, but to actually apply it is a different thing.
It's so difficult. Like, you know, I have days in the week, for example, my environment's a really difficult one with the situation, and I'll go in like 3 days of the week and nail it, come out, I've done what I can do, I've enjoyed it, I've been present, and there'll be days where I just can't manage it. And that's part of the journey, but you've got to be able to like give it a go. And like you've done it, like I say this to the listeners, and this kind of like a pointing I heard from this guy called Muji, is you've done it your way, and you're full of the anxiety and the fear and all these things, and you don't feel like football's giving you enough. So try play football with more love. Avoid the idea that the stigma that football and love aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of I say in sport at the moment is play with love.
Yeah.
Because it's different. It's a different idea completely.
Yeah, definitely.
Wrapping it off, I'd say we always kind of ask this question at the end of every podcast. And I don't really want to end this podcast because it's been brilliant. But what makes you more than a footballer? What makes you more than an athlete? What makes you human?
The love that I have to give, which
Yeah.
I brought up in my answer and you just talked about.
Yeah.
The love that I have to give, that is definitely what makes me who I am, and it was always there within me. And I think in football, at times, I put a barrier up to not bring that up because I felt like it wasn't needed or it wasn't necessary or I shouldn't bring that enjoyment and that love, which we've just spoke about, and I think would have been a game changer for me if I'd really felt that was the way to go for me. But it was what naturally wanted to come out, but I shut it off because I got told, and when you get told stuff by managers that you at that point respect and you value their opinion, and they tell you you're too nice to be a footballer, stop being so nice. That puts doubt in your mind. Is that the right way to be? Because at the end of the day, at that moment, I'm trying to impress that manager. I'm trying to get in the team, and if he wants me to be like horrible, like I'll try and be horrible to play in the team because that's what you do.
Yeah.
But what made me more human than athlete, and what made me, in the end, because I couldn't find a way at that time, because I only know what I know, and I couldn't find a way at that time to be my true self and make football work because I was losing who I was as a person. I stepped away to then and was able to give love and bring that out all of the time. And that's my job now, to basically share my love within me with others.
Amazing.
I'd love to have been able to do that at football and make that work. But I believe it led me to where I am now, and led me to my partner, led to me, my two stepdaughters, led to me the life that I've got now. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Amazing. Wow. What an ending. I love it. Thank you for coming on and sharing your words, your ideas, and how your experiences.
You're welcome. Pleasure.